Good evening and salutations to the gamers of the internet. We are here tonight to talk about how to encounter others to join the hobby that you're into or maybe they're into. Tonight, we'll be joined by the inflammable Jade, the punch me in the face Bruce, and Max, who needs a new diaper.
Man, just turn it inside out.
Okay.
So tonight we're going
What's
to
our
start
topic tonight?
with tonight. I think the first question is going to be is how did you get brought into the game, or did you find it by yourself? Was it first edition for those who are old enough to remember it, or was it 3.5? They're cranky bastards like me. Now I will start the question with Punchy McSlappy Bruce.
Well, I was about 8 years old. And for those of you that can't count, that was in like 83. And Matthew, this kid that grew up about a mile and a half down the road from me, literally, has a monster manual. And it had these weird words in it like number appearing, alignment, damage, or DMG. Some numbers. I had no idea what it was, but it had all these pictures in there. And I thought, this is pretty cool. What is this? And he's like, it's Dungeons and Dragons. I said, huh. And then he never talked to me again. He realized that I liked the idea of it. So he walked away. And then about 5 years later, we're me and my father at a Star Trek convention, and the merch room, the greatest room of all time, in my opinion, fight me. At a convention, you want to go to the merchant block. You want to go there. You want to see what they have. You want to see if they've got books that you don't, and how much money for them to part with them, or do they have crappy security and you're going to be a dirtbag there. So don't recommend the second part, but I do say that I was walking around and I stumbled across a Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons like RPG. And I never looked at a book like this before. I looked at a monster manual for Dungeons and Dragons back when I was 8.
I'm interrupt for
I'm
just a
getting ready.
second to say I'm looking at it right now. It's in my hands. You just can't see it on the screen. It's a great cover.
Amazing cover. So I bought it, and the $50 that I had quickly went away. It I bought the RPG. I bought Other Space as my first adventure. Probably not the best choice, but it was fun. And I bought some other things. I bought the Batman Death in the Family comic, which I still have, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the look into the game theory that they offered you. And I recommend anybody who's never gotten into an RPG before to probably start with the original D6 Star Wars game, because it's simple. It takes you by the hand in every instance that it can, and they walk you through scenarios, and they try to show you with examples, at least one per every 2 pages. So when you have the book open, you are given an example of what you need to do and how you would proceed and what you would ask for if you're the game master. So I started that summer. I started running RPG sessions with my father. My dad, I found out, didn't like it. So my neighbors, they had kids. I could go bother them with it. And we enjoyed it. But the lady that ran the Harley Davidson shop up the road, she was pushing her fifth child in a stroller one day, and she looked at us nerds in the garage playing around a big table. You're playing a game out of a book. And I realized there was that point in time when I realized I might actually have something on someone. Because while Mary was really nice, and there was a reason why she had 5 kids, she had the lack of forethought that there might be something more interesting in watching television or a night in a bedroom. So it was an important moment for me to grow. as a 13-year-old boy, and I stayed with the hobby, and I bought as much Star Wars as I could. I eventually bought everything for the D6 system, including at least one blister of every miniature package that West End Games made. And I will tell you that the Rancor sucked. That was the worst design miniature. I know when a miniature is good and when a miniature is bad. When a miniature is good, years after it's cast, you can feel it and you can feel the quality in it. And there's not pitting. There's not a erosion of detail like that one. And that Rancor, I must have got it at the very tail end of the printing, because that thing, whenever you'd run your fingers over it, it would just open up. It was terrible. So I learned an important lesson with Star Wars D6 RPG, but I love that system probably more than all other systems. Go ahead there, Connell.
That's cool. Star Wars, not really my bag, but I have tried to play a few of those campaigns. They look like they could be fun. What about you, Max? When did you get started, or how did you get started?
First, let me tell Cal, you're just gonna pile on to all the Twitter and YouTube mob for today. So you can't see it, but imagine that I'm raising 2 middle fingers to the internet verse today, because I don't care. And as Rick said in Rick and Morty, your boos don't faze me because I've seen what makes you cheer. So, all right. So anyway, how I got into the hobby was my first first couple times I played anything was in secret. Why? Because I went to Lutheran school, and I was already doing, and it's Wisconsin Synod Lutheran school, so or was it Missouri Synod? Either way, it's one of the hardcore ones. It's not the International Lutheran Church in America, what are they? Oh, ELC, whatever the hell it's called. Anyway, I don't do that stuff anymore. So
they're not kinder and gentler, are they?
No. This was the they didn't beat you with like rulers and so forth, but yeah, you got many more Bible verses. So I did it in secret, and a lot of people have already heard my first escapade in Dungeons and Dragons. But here's the quick version of it: made a character. I played it that day. Didn't really know what I was doing, but it was something where I was told I could use my imagination, and I knew I was doing something sinful and wrong, and I was. But 10 years old, I think, 9 or 10, for sure 9, maybe 10. I forget at that time. And so, I had all of that little adrenaline building up in me. And I remember the ants. Oh God, the giant ants in the cave that I had to fight because I already have a fear of bugs. This is why I think people who use safety tools are retards, because I have a fear of bugs, and I want you to put bugs in the game. Because I gotta not yell, my wife's sleeping. But I want you to put bugs in the game because I want to have that emotional response returned. I loved it. I remember biking home that night, and it was night. It's 8 or 9 at night. In Minnesota, it gets dark at 2 in the afternoon, and I was looking over my shoulder until I got home, and I only lived 1, 2, 3.5 blocks away from this kid's house. So but that was my first experience. And I don't remember what module it was. I know it's a module because he's reading out of a book. I do remember that. But it was giant ants, and giant ants freaked me out for a while. I was going to play again, but my parents got wind of the fact that I played the first time. And then I wasn't allowed to. So a couple years later, I was allowed to play this game called Battle Droids, which is now known as BattleTech. And then about a year or two after that, for real role playing, I got into we call it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm sorry, Robotech. Robotech was the first one. Played that for quite a bit. That's where I really learned how to actually role play, or what role playing games were. So my point in this, to keep it on topic, so I'm not just rambling my entire history there, is the fact that I got into the hobby through I did play D&D a couple more times. I think it was more like talking about it while we had our characters in front of us and we rolled dice a couple of times. But it is you don't have to get into the hobby through Dungeons and Dragons. You don't find something. Everybody out there, you've got something you like. Do you like Star Wars, as Bruce was talking about? Do you like anime? Do you like comic book heroes? Do you like Babylon 5? I mean, pick something that you enjoy. There's a role-playing game of it. Now, to be fair, a lot of those fly-by-night role-playing games that kind of suck. Either poorly written or they're bad mechanics, but especially with the bigger IPs, or you can turn a current role-playing game into that. You can take a Robotech from Rifts, or not Rifts, from Palladium, which isn't in print anymore. But you could take Heroes Unlimited from Palladium and turn it into your own Robotech game. You could take GURPS. I mean, GURPS is General Universal Role Playing System. You can take GURPS and make it whatever game you want. You can take my most favorite edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Oh my God, Dungeons and Dragons 5.0. Well, all the numbers above 2 are bad. But you can you can take D&D 5th edition and turn it into your own Robotech game. Now, if you're a brand new player, you might not be ready for that, and that's fine. But my point is, you can find a game out there that's for you. And with online play, if you're okay with that, you shouldn't even have a hard time of finding somebody to run it. Look, anybody here seen the movie Ralph Bakshi's Wizards?
Yes.
I have the role-playing game of that.
Oh God.
I mean, my point being is that there is a role-playing game for everything. I wouldn't run it, but I'm just saying there's a role-playing game for everyone. Just if you want to use your imagination, I'm going to use some terms that a lot of people don't like, but I'm using this for new players. Okay, I'm not using this for grognards. If you want to tell some sort of story, some sort of character growth story from beginning to end. If you want to have mechanics, some dice rolls, because think of it as an old choose your own adventure book. Like, I want to do this. I want to play this anime character that I want to play Dragon Ball Z. I don't know anything about it except for apparently they can blow up planets or something. And I want to be able to blow up a planet. Well, maybe you can't do that at level 1, but you can make that character. You can play that game and you can build up to that point to where you're blowing up planets. And you use the dice, roll the dice. Did you blow up the planet or did you fail to blow up the planet? Well, you failed. You see, the point that I'm getting at is there's something for everyone. It's not hard to get into it. If you've ever played Make Believe, all you're doing is adding dice to it for a little bit of structure in its simplistic sense. So I know I didn't talk a lot about how I got into it because, again, I got into it multiple times within the first couple of years. But for me, it's important to let people know, maybe you tried it, didn't like it. Try it again. Maybe you tried it, loved it, can't find anybody. Oh, that's not an excuse. You can find people. I have people clamoring for me. Of all people want me to play in their games. And everybody who knows me, like, especially today, again, go on Twitter or YouTube today and you'll find out everybody hates me today. I don't care. There's always somebody to play with.
All right. Jade, you're up.
Oh man. So set the way back machine to I was 13. My buddy Reese, who I gave a shout out to on Facebook and let him know that we're doing this tonight. I first have to thank Reese for this because he's the one who got me interested in this. I'd read The Hobbit, I'd read Lord of the Rings, Fellowship, Two Towers, and when it was explained to me that I could play characters from those books in a setting like Middle Earth, it blew my mind. I was like, wait, that's a thing? That's a thing people do? People play games in these, other realms and whatnot, and these books? That's awesome. I want to do that. So my first character inevitably was a ranger. I did not have a great time as a ranger. Got to be honest. The spell mechanics kind of threw me for a loop, but I stuck with it. Especially into college, I said, keep going, keep giving it a try. My first set of books are actually behind me, over that shoulder. This camera trips me every time. So that set of books there, it's all 3 core books for 3.5. That was my very first set. I sat down, read through cover to cover, and was just simply awestruck by the concept of being able to take on a role as a completely different person in a completely different kind of world. That really spoke to me, because this game or this hobby is a lot about escapism to a certain extent for a lot of people. And for whatever reason you might find yourself trying to escape the harsh realities of this world, you know, the hobby itself has such a enormous man, my words are kind of flustered here. The hobby itself has such a wide range that you can do anything, be anything. And for those who are seeking escapism, that is amazing. I'm not going to go into my past, as a young person, but I didn't have the greatest time growing up. Not to say that my time was bad in any way. Like I enjoyed my childhood, but there were some elements of it that I didn't like, and that's why I ran screaming into the dark with the hobby as it is. And again, I have to give a shout out to my buddy Reese, who really got me into the hobby. And without him, I wouldn't be, on here. So yeah, it was reading, fantasy novels and good friends that brought me into the hobby.
All right.
Real quick, I want to piggyback on something that he said there, which is the whole thing. I bet you if each one of us were to say something, I bet you we all had a similar story with the term, the term. God, I can't not talk of we had issues going on in our life or whatever it happened to be. Mine actually started a little later. Mine started after I got out of Lutheran school. Really, the worst time of my life that I never want to be part of again is junior high. I didn't get into gaming for real until senior high, which gaming helped me through a lot of that. Again, it's not therapy, but it can be therapeutic. And it's where I met a lot of friends that I'm still friends with today because of that in, starting in 9th, 10th grade. A couple of them are on my Discord that I've known for almost 40 years. Anyway, the point is, I bet you we all have a little story like that. And it might even be important, without getting into specifics, for each of us to kind of just point that out, so that people who are out there, especially as I'm blasting, the weirdos right now on Twitter, as you guys are talking, because they're being weirdos, and I think weirdos should be mocked, about how you can get, how you can use that to, to strengthen yourself.
Okay.
That's fair. That is really fair. I got into the hobby much later by the sounds of you two, because I was already in my 20s when I got into the hobby, but for reasons that don't need to be said, I had to move back home, and my brother was going up to classes at our community college, and it was better to sit up there and look at the girls roughly my age than be at home. And a gentleman that three of us know came over and asked me if I wanted to play. Next thing I know, it becomes a lifelong addiction. I mean, hobby.
It's certainly an addiction at times.
Teach your kids how to play Magic the Gathering and gaming RPG early in life. They'll never have money for drugs.
Pretty much.
So that's how I got in. Okay, so
actually, I have a question. So, Max, was that a question of what, like, we were trying to escape, or did you want to touch on that?
I mean, we can. I mean, so here, let me give you an example for me. Just sure. I'll set the tone, and you guys can tell me if you want to take in a different direction. Because I kind of want to talk out of two sides of my mouth. And what I mean by that is so many people on Twitter, I'm reading this crap. Dude, I have somebody arguing with me while I'm talking with you guys right now on Twitter about Thri-Kreen in fucking Spelljammer. Stop being a dipshit. Anyway, when I first actually really got into it, kind of understood what I was doing. It was like this thing came out, this AD&D second edition. I didn't really know these people, but they kept hanging out in the physics lab. I hung out in the physics lab because it's like a little room between the three physics classrooms, because I just did. Like I was away from people. I'm not a social person. I don't like people in general. I'm not talking individuals. I'm talking people. We have 7.8 billion people on the planet. If 7 billion people went away, it wouldn't bother me. Like, I'd have more space. Thank you. But they kept coming in, And I was watching them play this game and talk about this game, and it sounded like the books that I read. And I was a little small and nervous, and I, just didn't want to talk to him. But I finally just like, what are you doing? Oh, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, mind you, I was finally confirmed, and I didn't have to go to church every week, and I didn't have to read Bible passages anymore and all that other nonsense, or worry about, oh, you have to learn 2 hymnals by Wednesday now because, we found out that you watch Doctor Who, that kind of nonsense, right?
They made you do that for Doctor Who?
You weren't allowed to talk about Doctor Who, but no. The only things that really came up for that were Dungeons and Dragons. What else? There were a couple other things at the time. Heavy metal music, but I didn't care because I wasn't listening to really any music at that time anyway. There were a couple other things. All the tropes. I mean, to be fair, all the the religious tropes of the early '80s. And I started playing, and my first encounter, they gave me a character sheet and said, okay, we're all playing characters that we've played for years. The lowest level character is level 20. And this is AD&D second edition, like a month after it came out. They've been playing these characters from first edition. They just converted them second. One character was a lich. Another character was like, I don't know, all half god or something. I don't know what the hell they were. I don't remember. What I do remember is that I played and I started pointing at the spells and saying, what does this one do? Oh, you want to cast that? Yeah. Okay. This is what you need to do to cast it. All right. What does this one do? And I ended up killing one of the characters who had been playing his character for over 10 years. And to this day, he probably still hates me. He hated me for the rest of his life. The dude came off on me. Like, I'd never played a game before. He ego tripped on me. I'm like, 14 years old, 15 years old. He comes off on me and I started, doing that. But what the game did for real for me, other than gain me a couple friends, because apparently some people didn't like this guy. This is how people take real life stuff into games, right? It really sparked my imagination. Because I was reading stuff like, of course I read Lord of the Rings. I would read, I can't remember the names of them, but I read some, library issued science fiction books and so forth. But now here I could visualize that fireball as it's whooshing down, as I wrap the bat guano, in the sulfur, or the other way around, the sulfur in the bat guano, and I throw it down the hallway, and it just expands out and turns into this glorious fire and kills 2 first level orcs, whatever. I could envision that. I could feel it. And I was like, I love this. Because when I played Battletech, we didn't really do the role. We added some of the role playing in afterward. I didn't even care what a House Liao was. The whole Max Liao name of mine, that came later. It came about this time, but it came later. I didn't care about that. I just put robots on the map board, or pennies called robots on the map board. Robotech was fun, except for I didn't follow the whole Macross stuff. I only knew it from the game. I just liked the fact that it had Transformers in it, because that's what I called them, and they'd yell at me for it. That had Transformers in it, and I could play that. We didn't play from the actual Macross storyline because I didn't get it. I didn't know it. But this D&D thing captured me more than anything else, and that's when I didn't eschew the other games, but that's when D&D became everything. Now, what does this do for your actual question, or the actual point is, I found some new friends who I shared a hobby with. Because one of the things that you guys might not know about me is I was the kid that was in everything but nothing. I played sports, but I was the kid that when you played Smear the Queer, guess who the queer was all the time?
All the time.
I was, but that's fine. I mean, I was good at the sports I played if I was just big enough to actually play them. I was smart, but I didn't like the nerdy kids with their pants up to their knees. Are those short pants or long shorts kind of things? The druggies were the ones who were the D&D players are the ones I got along with, except for I've never to this day done a drug in my life. Well, unless you count caffeine, but they're the ones I got along with. So I was really I didn't fit in any group, but I was part of all groups. And that weird feeling of not belonging. Look, when you're a kid, right now I don't care. But when I was 14 years old, it mattered that I didn't belong. And this helped me belong. I don't say that the game saved my life or anything stupid like that. All you weirdo 5th edition people this is therapy. No, it is not. What was therapeutic was hanging out with people I know, using the imagination that I wanted to use, and playing this game where it was a combination of what's going to happen next with the dice rolls, and I get to have a little bit of control. I have a little bit of say in the authorship of this character, so to speak. Hopefully that makes sense in the fact of, I'm not going to go into my family life, but let's just say I had some trouble, partially my own making, but partially just the way the family life was, And this really gave me something that I could focus my imagination on instead of writing death threats to people. True story. Ask Von Zarek on my Discord.
Wait, you're from Minnesota, right?
Oh yeah, this is up there in Minnesota where I was, threatening them with snowballs and
I was kind of wondering what a Minnesota death threat might look like.
Well, one day you might have a bad day tomorrow, Joe. I'm so sorry that the day isn't going to go so well. Interesting times and all. There you go. That's a Minnesota threat.
All right. Wow. Well, we can keep on that note, Max. That's actually a really good note to go with this topic. I'll say, why don't you go next, Bruce?
I thought I already answered the question.
Well, Max, a continuation. Oh, that's right, you did. Mike, Jay, do you want to jump on to what he said?
Sure. Much like Max, I too was not well adjusted during high school days. I was part of this circle of friends, and we called it a circle because it was a very small, tight-knit group of us. And we were all the outcasts of the high school, of society, basically. And we were all different, very different from even one another. But that didn't stop us from coming together to kind of push each other up and hold each other up. And those are the friends that I started playing D&D with, 3.035. And high school, I don't know what else I don't know what I can say about it other than that was probably the worst 4 years of my life. I absolutely dreaded every single day I stepped foot onto that property. I absolutely hated it. But that was part and parcel to the people who were my classmates. Of my graduating class, I hated probably 98% of them because of how they treated me and how they treated people that I considered my friends. And this isn't a boohoo sob story. This is just me saying, hey, that's what I was escaping. That's why I ran screaming with a torch through the darkness towards D&D. Because I needed it out. I needed something to take away from the absolute ungodly shithole that was my high school. They reached out for a 10-year anniversary not long ago, and I told them never darken my door again because I hate every one of you people. I have nothing nice to say to anyone from my high school, except for my friends. So that is why I, played D&D then. That's, I still have the memories of the characters I played. I still remember the stories that we played through, and they will always be part of me because that is my escapism. That is what I ran to escape the absolute crap fest that was my life at that time.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you find that actually role-playing a character, again, I don't want to use the story thing, but I've got to use it here. Role-playing a character in whatever story is going on at the time was more fun than reading a novel?
Yes, absolutely yes. Being able to control the actions of this heroic character in this story that I don't know where it's going was amazing. Like I could read books, I'm like many of us can. I could read the fantasy novels and I could, kind of put myself into the character's shoes, but that was always a railroad. I could play a character, make my own decisions, affect the world around me, and have it affect me. That was so much more tangible and real to me, and it just made me want to keep playing and keep going.
Yeah, feeling like you were part of a different world where you might not always win, you might not always be right, but you're part of a different world. Yeah, I agree. I just want to say I agree 100% with what you're saying on that one. That was absolutely the draw for me.
Yeah,
Yes, Bruce?
No, I'm just saying that's why we go back to it. That's why we
Yep.
keep sitting down, even though it might be the same game system. It might be the same 10 people we've played with for the past 15, 20 years. That's why we go back. We want that escapism.
So,
Um,
so I would guess to end on that is no matter what you're going through in life, if you have a good group of friends and you have the wherewithal to be able to play some kind of tabletop RPG and get into the escapism of it, immerse yourself into the world and into the play of it, not necessarily go full on bananas into it, but know that it's a game, remember it's a game, but really get into the game. I It can help you to a certain extent get through some of those darker times, or at least it did with me. I'm not gonna say it saved my life, but it did help me get through those dark times. So back to you, Cigar.
Yeah, I'll go down this road. High school, I never gamed in high school. Gaming was not even anywhere near on my radar. Me in high school didn't get along. I played athletic sports, but it wasn't smeared, as you put it, smeared the queer because anybody tried that, I punch. There's
I
nothing
was
better.
5 foot nothing and less than a buck. I mean, come on.
I'm the guy that used to walk around in high school with 2 rolls of quarters in their pockets because there's nothing better than to break some change. But I had my own issues. But gaming didn't save my life in high school. I mean, the only thing that saved my life in high school is because I just wanted to give the whole high school experience the finger and tell them, yes, I am going to graduate. Go fuck yourself. But later on, when I did get in gaming, because I'm a loner most of my time, I mean, I can talk to almost anybody about anything, but I stay by myself most of the time anymore. But gaming with Jade in the early days and a handful of other people, Bruce included, it's what keeps me sane. I obviously have to have at least 1 or 2 games a week, or I'm just watching the paint dry and I'm going crazy. So there's not one addition like, oh my god, this game knows me, but it's the fellowship and talking to people that are like-minded enough where it makes being part of a communion of gamers that much more reasonable, that much more understanding. Um, I jokingly say that I'm a geek trapped in a jock's body when I was younger. Rugby, boxing, swimming, and a few other things. But it is the Peter Pan fanboyness of gaming is really interesting because no matter what's going on in my day, it being whatever, I can just disappear into a character and not have to think the way I think. I can think how that character thinks, and the escapism, a part of it, I think is important, just for a momentary 5 minute break from reality. And if you got somebody in your life, this is my opinion, if you got somebody in your life that hasn't gamed before and you're a younger person or even an older person, but has never gamed before, and they like fantasy, they like sci-fi, they like political sci-fi or political fantasy or whatever variation of it, drag them to somebody's table, drag them to a game shop, and just let them breathe. That does breathe and do something that has no consequences other than at the end of the night. In most game shops, you can game for free at most people's basement. Bring something to eat, bring something to drink, share with the do a potluck. I mean, most of us are grown ups. Be kind to your host. Bribe the DM, you might go up a level. Depends on your DM. But that's kind of where I stand on it. Here's the other side of this question. If you can go back in time, if you could subconsciously put yourself back in time to the moment you start playing, would you have said, hey, this might not be a thing for you, or hey, you have a better luck if you go this route with gaming instead of the with this group of people, or so forth and so on. Changing the environment or changing the game. Would you, or would you just stay the course? Max, you want to go?
I guess I don't fully understand the question because I want to answer it in the way that you're trying to ask it. I mean, I can say what I want, but I'd like to answer it the way you're trying to ask it.
If you can go back to your younger self and say, hey, this gaming is going to eat up X amount part of your life. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Should you have pushed maybe a different game system, a different concept of what, RPG or all this is on that you've been doing for the last umpteen years? Or would you just stay the course?
No, I'd stay the course. Well, I have to put this in two perspectives. Excuse me 1 second. Had to cough there. I got to drink something. Excuse me.
That's all
right. Sorry about that. My throat just went weird.
All right.
I'd put this in two contexts. One is gaming back in the day, and the other is gaming now. So some of you may know. I don't like to say I left the hobby because I was still going to conventions and I'd still do one shots here and there. But there's a part of my life where I did compared to now and compared to the 90s where I was out of the hobby hardcore. And that was because I did professional growth. So that's kind of dividing line for me. In the 90s, I played almost anything and everything. Whether it's at War Games West in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is now defunct, or it's it was at the gaming store in Springfield, Virginia. I forget the name of it, whether it's with my friends in the Air Force. I played so many games in the late 80s, early 90s that I wouldn't change that for anything, because I'm not going to sit here and say that the only way you can understand gaming is by playing every game out there. I think that's dumb. But I also do think that there's the concept that you should play more than one to get an idea what else there is. You got to play a few, and one doesn't mean going from 3rd edition D&D to 5th edition D&D. It means going or to Pathfinder. It means saying, okay, I played a Vancian Magic skill-based game here. Now I'm going to go play Champions. Now I'm going to go play GURPS. Now I'm going to go play Star Wars D6. Now I'm going to play Palladium. Whatever it happens to be, find something completely different, because I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. The one time I played Harn and Torg, which I don't even remember the games. I just know I played them, and both of them was like, I like this. One of them was like a whole bunch of weird different worlds. I forget which one that one is. I wanted to play that one some more. Never got the chance to. I couldn't. No, I wouldn't want that to be any different than what it is now. I don't want to be that person that's just stuck in D&D. And just as much as I love my friends from high school, I've had with the exception of one person, I've had every group of mine has been better than that. Even though that's what got me started, and that's what where I really gained my enjoyment of the game. But almost every group has been better than my high school group, with the exception of one, maybe two players. Now, then I kind of I fell out of the hobby for a little bit because you have to make decisions in life.
Yep.
And my decision was I like money, and I want to be better at my job so that I can earn more of that stuff, so that I can come back into the hobby and enjoy it even more. And that's what I did. I mean, to be fair, I didn't do as much playing in Germany as I'd hoped, but I still did more there than I had done in years past. So, but when I came back into the hobby, it's been a culture shock to some degree. Like all these little, I just answered one while you were talking a moment ago on YouTube. These grognards are what's bad for the hobby. No, you're what's bad for the hobby. I mean, these people, again, some of you have already heard this stuff, but for those that haven't, we used to play as adults with families and kids. Oftentimes, we would play 8 hours minimum on Saturday or Sunday. So this whole excuse, I can't do that, I got a family. Bullshit. You can work it out with your wife. I'm not saying you should, or every family can. I'm just saying it is possible. Hey, honey, you got Saturdays, I got Sundays. Something like that. So it can be done, is my point. This whole thing, I'm not doing anything. I was literally told this. I'm not doing anything for 4 hours. What are you talking about? 4? Fuck you, 8. Then there's this whole thing, this concept now, people only play one game. Now, the way we did it was we would have our main game on Saturday or Sunday. Okay, I'll do me specifically. I went to the gaming store on Saturday, and played whatever was going on there, usually a BattleTech tournament or maybe an RPGA Dungeons and Dragons game, or I stayed away from the vampire stuff because I didn't care. Or maybe it was a campaign somebody was starting for D&D that was good. It was a short campaign, but lasts 3 to 6 months. On Sunday was the main game. That was the one we all look forward to, whether I was running it or somebody else was running it, whatever. And those lasted years. And then Monday through, at one of my locations, Monday through Friday, I was running a whole different game literally every day of the week. I was playing something. Burnout is a real thing, by the way, people. But we were doing different things, different games. We were trying new stuff. I could tell you right off the bat, I'd do a one shot and say, this game sucks, I'm never playing it again. Another one, I'd be like, oh my God, I want to play that more often. I don't care who's running it. Things like that. So I couldn't change it because I don't know what it would change into. Would it change into that I'm a D&D purist? Like I can only play that game. It's the only game that ever existed, never should exist. I already have enough hatred in me right now of people and how they play the games. I don't think I need to have more, adding that to it. But just those games added so much to my imagination. All those different games, like, oh, Champions does this differently. I don't like superhero games, but it has some really cool features to it that I can incorporate into another game. Oh, Star Wars D6, what a simple system. What's that?
What a great system.
Yeah, what a great system. I mean, I have one quibble with it. I always will, but it's a minor quibble, and technically I'm wrong mathematically, but it's one of those things that when you look at it, when you play it, it seems to be true, but mathematically it's not. Anyway, it's such a beautifully simple system, but then, I have played the Pathfinders and the Starfinders. I have played these other ones. I just played them and didn't like them. So I outside of that, as far as the people, I've played all over the world. If there's one thing maybe I would change, there's an advantage to constantly moving around because I was in the military, and I actually moved more after the military than in it because I was a contractor and a government civilian. As you get to see all types of players. And you get to find out that the Twitterazzi, as much as they think that they're reality, I have literally never met anybody like that at a table. I've talked to a couple that I probably won't game with, but I've never met anybody that gets into Twitter nonsense in real life. Like, I don't think they exist. I think they only exist on Twitter and in other people's stories. I've played with a lot of great people. The bad side of it, though, is I've never been in any long-term campaigns that I can trust. Like, I would love, now that I'm here in Alabama, I would love to have a campaign that I know is going to last 5 years at least, something like that. I would love that because that's how I like to build character. I like slow XP. I like slow leveling. I like things coming slowly where I feel the character's growth and I can appreciate all of that, but to make sure I'm staying on track here with the question. Yeah, I can't think of what else I would change. That might be the only thing that I would change. Is it would be nice, if not the static group of the same people all the time, but it'd be nice to have, it would have been nice to have had more 5-year long campaigns instead of 3 to 6 months.
Who wouldn't want 8 hours a day, game days, every weekend, at least one, maybe both days? Who doesn't want that?
I mean, I can go I'm cool with that. I don't know how many more Dawn Busters I have in me.
Bruce, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I gotta grab a drink.
All right, Jade, you're up.
Okay. So what was the question again? Man, go back in time and talk to my younger self about gaming. Oof, that's a wormhole there.
Don't game up at ICC. I don't know.
No. I don't know if I would change much about like the games I got involved in or the people I got to meet along the way. A lot of the games I played, I became friends with those people because of the games I joined, and they're lifelong friends. Like, I'm currently speaking with a friend I haven't talked to in probably 3 years. I give him a shout out tonight. My buddy Reese. I just reached out to him on Facebook to, say, hey, by the way, you might here's a link to this channel, and I'm gonna give you a shout out because thank you, sir, for getting me into this. But not just him, but every game I played, I made at least minimum one lifelong friend that I still try to communicate with. And I've played Vampire the Masquerade. I've played a little bit of Mage the Awakening. I've played, D&D. But those aren't the only games I played. I read through so many different game manuals because I was wanting to run or put together a game that the rules just never worked the way I wanted them to for the game or the story I was trying to run or the story I was trying to tell. So I had to do a lot of learning from a lot of different systems, and I got to meet a lot of really great people because of those great systems that are out there. D&D is the most popular. Sure, I'll agree with that statement. It's the most popular. It's most widely played, but it's not necessarily the greatest or the end all be all. There are so many great games out there, and if I was to go back in time to tell my younger self, hey, if you want to be into this hobby, don't stick with just Vampire the Masquerade, just D&D. Branch out, explore. Was it Blood and Bronze? Explore the Conan system. Back from the 90s. Explore Traveler. I never actually got to play Traveler. It seemed interesting. So did Spelljammer. I never actually got to play Spelljammer. But it
play Traveler. Don't play Spelljammer.
Okay. But it spoke to me. If I was to say, hey, go experience these games, and I would say, hey, here's this knowledge from the past 20 years of gaming. These are the games that you are going to play. These are the games that you really should look into. So yeah, I would say I would direct myself away from D&D to a certain extent and more towards a lot of the vast different types of games out there. Because I for the longest time, that's all I played was D&D. 3, 5, and Pathfinder. That's really literally most of my 20 years is in that type of game, unfortunately. But that's not to say that I didn't have fun with other game systems. Just nobody knew the rules well enough to run it, and I didn't know the rules well enough to run it, so I just didn't. So yeah, that's what I'd say to my younger self. How about you there, Punch? What is that? Sidearn?
Punch Sidearn.
Punch Sidearn.
I'll have to give you the website link so you can see all my names I'll have throughout the years.
Well, the text is so tiny I can't read it.
Okay, I keep forgetting I'm the only one that puts this up to a 32-inch TV.
Yeah, this is a 17-inch monitor.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would like to go back in time and tell my first gaming group, Rich, Danny, Pixie, Danny's mother, and those were relatives of the Bledsaw family. They had a sizable amount of Judges Guild shit because there was a lot of the relatives of Judges Guild that they just got chunks of stuff. Here, have a pallet of stuff. And so, like, I would just like to go back to that group and tell my younger self, listen, you're not going to keep this group forever. It's okay to occasionally piss them off, but you should probably try to tell them we should always at least try to be civil and friendly to each other, because 3 out of the 4 people that were not the DM were related to each other, and a event happened not long after we all graduated high school in the early 2000s. Well, Pixie was Danny's mom, so she was like, she's in her 60s or 70s now, and she got really upset, and Danny got upset with Rich, and Rich got upset with Pixie, and just a bunch of shit happened. But this gaming family got really angry at each other. There was just like Will didn't get the right punctuation. Somebody died, and somebody said, "I want that port swing," or something just as stupid as that. And so there's a big fight now, and somebody needs to go in there and moderate mediate the family and be like, you're still related to each other. You know, you still have to see each other on Facebook and at, holiday gatherings. I hope you understand that. So they're at each other's throats and have been since like 2004. In 2006, God, I hate to say this, when it was discussed that I did not have the mindset of the people in Decatur, and I was helping. This is my second time I was supporting a political candidate in the county races. I wasn't trying to be political, but he wanted to have me drive him around, so I did that. And we were good friends, but because I wasn't affiliated with the correct party in Decatur, I lost a lot of friends that were involved with the old Judges Guild family because I didn't think like them. And it kind of pissed me off because, for the most part, gaming has always meant to me that Jade and I can sit at the same table. We don't have to vote the same way, but we're probably going to try to play a game and get along for the 8 hours or 12 hours we're there together. And the gaming helps kind of bridge these huge chasms of thought differentiation. You don't want to have people that they just can't stand the thought that somebody else is alive that doesn't think like them. Like, whoever thought that Twitter is a real place, Max is out there just rubber handing their faces right now. Just smack, 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 smack. You're not real.
Yeah, I'm actually upsetting people who kind of like us as well. But you know what? Again, it's Twitter. I don't care.
It one of these days you're gonna tone that aspect down, and you can still make people think, but outright pissing on their face and saying it feels good, doesn't it? Probably not the best. Probably not the best way to go about business. and I'm just gonna reference a certain stream about druids.
The thing is, I talked to the person who initiated that. He finally watched it. I didn't get a chance to talk to him until Tuesday.
Okay.
He said he loved the video.
Okay.
Context, people, context.
So
it was funny because he didn't watch the Friday night chill stream. That's what he said too. He said I didn't understand why the people were complaining in chat. Did they not understand the context of the video? And I damn near fell out of my chair laughing. I said, that was the entire point of a rant on Fridays, that people apparently weren't getting the context. He just shook his head. But by the way, he's a Pathfinder player. He's not even an old school D&D player. He knows nothing about old school D&D. Love the video. I'm done now.
Well, that's just the thing, though, is that some people don't have the ability to anchor themselves to something so they can keep themselves level. And you had like that conversation about druids, and like my situation where I was affiliated with about 50 to 70 gamers that were generational in a town of 80,000 people, a dying town of 80,000 people where they continuously fight about things that will not matter, and they continue to lose money. So, I left that area and I'm now down here, but it pisses them off. There's not a shortage of salt or envy about things. And all it would take would just be like, you want to sit down and like have a good cup of coffee? Do you want to like roll some dice? And all that has to be done is for two parties to have a clear line of communication to where they can trade ideas. And most of the time, political arguments can be breached by the fact, let's find a common ground. You usually can. Connell and I argued for the 4 years of Trump, which I thought was the dumbest reason to argue, because I'm like, you're telling me he's a Republican. That guy gave more money to every left-minded individual in the nation. Whenever they'd go up to him with open hat, please donate, please contribute. And he would always do it. But Connell would be there chewing my ass up. I can't stand the fact you like Trump. I don't know. I didn't get it. But the same thing would happen with this group in Decatur. And I guess I'm still suffering a little bit of grief for it today, because here I am talking about it because I got an email because my name was brought up at a new gaming store and people were still pissed off at what I did in 1998. There's a whole new generation of gamers that have came up since then. And all I did was I took the gaming funds that we had from the dues, and I went to Menards and I loaded up plywood and 2x4s and angled wood so we could construct gaming tables for the club. But these people wanted that money to sit there like it was going to accrue like 7.1% interest every year. And back in 98, mind you, a piece of plywood like what we bought was about $34 for BC, 3/4 inch. They got upset. They're still upset at that. So, anyway, that would I would like to go back in time and just tell my old self, listen, you're probably going to upset people just by waking up, but you should probably at least try to be a bridge between two vantage points. If you can do that, it'll be a lot better. Being that you're wanting to play as a DM, it'll be easier for you this way. And I think that would probably be the way that I would want to go. Kai would probably say the same thing, since he's going to never not be behind the screen.
Well, we can fix that in theory.
Yeah.
To answer my own question, I really enjoyed boxing and I really enjoyed rugby, but if I can go back in time, I would have told myself to find a group that played. Oh, when I was in high school, it probably would be what 3 or 3.5.
How old are you?
38.
It'd have been the end of AD&D just before getting into 3.0 for you. 3.0
Right.
was out while I was in high school, and 3.5 came out as I was graduating.
Okay, that makes sense. I probably would have got into it. I probably would have got into the gaming scene sooner than what I did. Ironically enough, it wasn't, after I'm making the comment about college, it really wasn't that got me into gaming so much. It was playing Daggy here or Belgarth, whatever variation, and sitting around a campfire with 7 other huge gaming nerds to talk about the glories of teleporting or making a Force Dragon painting himself gold to go piss off a red dragon.
Okay, so hold on a second. Why do you guys have those weird stories? No, the best stories are when you accidentally teleport into a wall and die. Not the stories where weird shit happens and you win and save the princess and dragons are dancing and sing Kumbaya. No, it's when stupid shit happens to you. It's like, I've been playing this character for a year and a half. I teleport into a wall. Well, there's a floor. No, I'm sorry, there's a statue. I teleported halfway into a statue and died.
That's fair.
That's awesome.
So the whole Force Dragon thing, that was something we convinced the Force Dragon to paint itself gold, or to put a image on itself to look like a gold dragon to go piss off a red dragon, and this was all to save our own skin. We still ended up having to give away like all of our magic items because.
How did you convince it to do that? Dragons aren't stupid.
No, a red dragon was encroaching upon its territory, and it didn't have a plan to deal with it because I don't know what the dynamic was from the GM's perspective, but we convinced the Force Dragon to get the basically look like a gold dragon because the racial hatred there. And get it to chase the gold dragon, which would appear smaller, through this gorge or this canyon, by either stealing some of its hoard or some nonsense. And we were set up with a wall of force in the gorge to
Okay, so
catch the red
this
dragon.
wasn't some sort of trick like ha 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 fool you. This was like something you
No.
concocted with. Okay, I misunderstood that. My fault.
This was basically to kill the red dragon, let the gold dragon claim its hoard so we could live. Because force dragons are immune to force effects, including wall of force. So the gold dragon goes through the wall of force. The gold paint peels off, just as the thought registers in the red dragon's mind of, "Oh, I've been smacked," and it splatted against a wall of force at full speed, like 4 times movement speed, tilt into the wall of force, broke its neck. It was hilarious.
That's definitely much more. I misread how that was going. I thought you were fooling one dragon to basically fool another dragon. I'm like, dragons aren't stupid; they're not going to fall. But
No.
You're actually working with the dragon. That makes much more sense. And okay, that's a cool story. Yeah.
That's helpful.
But as I was saying, sitting around the campfire and hearing all these stories, I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Then that following, autumn, ending up back in fucking cornfield, fuck off, Illinois, in the middle, in East Peoria of all goddamn places. I ran it. I was at ICC and I met, Jade and a handful of other people. And, Jade is a lifetime friend. I will never not be his friend, and it's from gaming. It's from finding a new group or finding a new hobby. I kind of have to thank Rick Starkweather, but I really don't want to. But that's
where we can call ourselves gatekeepers, because we're kind of pushing him out of the cool kids group, and you go play with those retards that play 5e. You go play with those.
Come on.
Well, you know what I mean.
Well,
you go play with those fucking undesirables that are reading on Twitter, or people that are butthurt about like something on Facebook.
There is a segue there, though.
Being butthurt?
No, how to convince people. No, convince isn't the word. How to encourage, how to bring a new game. So we're talking bringing people into the hobby, right? Well, the hobby is more than one game. Unlike, unfortunately, some people see it as just one game. It's more than one game. How do you encourage people to try other things? Let's say the person doesn't play D&D, never started with D&D, and you want to get the person to try D&D, or vice versa. The person only knows 5e, or only knows 3e, or only knows 1e, whatever. I won't do anything else. How do you bring? I want a different game for each one of you. So, Bruce, I know you like Star Wars D6. How would you convince somebody to do Star Wars D6? Don't answer now, because I'm gonna go around. Connell,
I'm going to pop right in and answer this, because
I didn't want to take over Connell's show. So
in 1990, 1991, the D&D groups that I was hanging out with started depopulating, and I was just a pimply faced teenager, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why aren't these guys wanting to play? We've got dungeons to loot, and we've got stuff to do. And a buddy of mine's like, hey man, why don't you come with us tonight? I'm like, oh, okay, Scott, I'll go with you guys. So I go hang out with Scott and the other Scott, the two Scotts that they were long-term Wizard players, and they were kind of jazzed about something. They were excited, like we're going to go do something cool. So we're listening to Winger on the way over to this gaming.
Winger.
Wow.
We're going to listen to Winger on this trip across town.
At least it wasn't Hanson.
This is 1990. Yeah. Listen to Winger, and all of a sudden we get there, we go to this basement, and it's all black with purple drapes, and we're listening to Depeche Mode, I think. And then the storyteller comes out. Drink fuckers. Well, anyway, the storyteller comes out, and we notice that the table's there, and they got black candles, and there's like 7 chicks with like character sheets in front of them.
I call bullshit.
No, I'm not. They were ladies. Okay, 4 of them were considered.
Wait, what year was this?
This is Decatur, Illinois.
Yeah, but what year?
In 1990, 1991.
Yeah, that's the same year that half my group was. Like, ever since then, half my group was female. Now,
Well,
Where the girls at?
they're raising kids, so you want to get those single moms in your Fortnite RPG, and that's how you do it, because you have your like 10 or 12-year-old fucking little paint chip eater, and you'll get a single mom at your table, and that's how you do it. But no, for 1990, 91, like I'm hanging with the Scots, and all of a sudden I get to meet Vic and these other weird people, and we played Vampire the Masquerade, and I got killed. Like within 30 minutes of
Or
this
during
started.
character creation because you were already dead.
We were no. I got diablerized by one of the other girls, by the fat chick, and she noticed that I didn't really like her too well. So anyway, I got diablerized by her, and I had a kind of a good time. But I watched everybody else play, and it was one of those things where I died, but they played for 10 hours, so I got to sit there till like 2 a.m. When I got home, I was grounded. So I bumped into those people again when I was 17 in 92, and things were a little different. Their gaming group hadn't changed much. They had 12 people now, including somebody else. They had 2 GMs, 2 storytellers, and they were running this chronicle. They had all the books, they had multiple copies of the books. And none of the stores in fucking Decatur would sell these books because all the GMs were like, D&D or nothing, D&D or nothing, D&D or nothing. So it was an interesting dichotomy, and getting to play a game where like your actions were dictated by what do you want to do, instead of what does your character sheet let you do, because that was kind of how the DMs ran first edition D&D, not basic ed. The first ed D&D guys were very much like, you've got a peg, you've got to fill. What are you going to do? We're in a dungeon, and they wouldn't let you go about and like, hey, we're going to have a life outside dungeons. No, 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 no. We were playing vampire, and instead we're doing things and interacting with various people through the city, and we're trying to keep our numbers low because you're supposed to have one vampire per 100,000 people, and Decatur's like 94,000. We're not even supposed to have one vampire in this miserable city, and there's 10 of us there. And then somebody got turned into a ghoul when their character died, or somebody made a ghoul character, so he had to be outside sometimes. So it was an interesting thing. But how do you get people that you want to play with to go to a different game? I'm going to go with the old school sex sells, add females, because that worked.
Have you
for
listened
that
to
group.
DM James talk about? He would hear story. He'd had your exact same story, but it would have changed a little bit.
Well, we were listening to Depeche Mode, and then we got stuck listening to The Residents, which is the worst prog rock group I've ever heard of in my life, and I still can't get it out of my head.
I always hated the whole depressed mode stuff, but DM James had the same story as you, except for he went there for the fat chicks. Fat chicks with daddy issues, he said.
There were 7 girls the first time I went there. 4 of them were considered thick or like oh hell no.
No, fat. Just say it. Obese, fat,
Obese.
nasty.
Obese.
Looks like they got ropes for assholes.
Yeah, and so like the other 3 were like the reason why you stay at the table, because like they were like not only like attractive, but they were pleasant, and so like you didn't mind, and they would just they kited that group of 7 people around. These 3 kited the other 7 around, and they just drug that table all over. It was fun. I'm not gonna lie. I had a fun time playing with that group.
So how is that? Just real quick, because I've got to go actually now, or in just a minute. But how is that with regard to bringing new people in and recapturing that experience for them?
As a DM, if you want to have a group like that, you want to have a game that appeals to both types of gamers. You want to have a game that you can have individuals that will want to make time for a game. So probably not having a super mega dungeon would be a good idea. You should probably have a game that appeals to everybody's social game and everybody's mechanical game. And you want to have the social be heavier than the mechanics. You want to have something to where these guys can do things, and they can sway power groups, and they can have people rely on them for favors. So you want to do that. And I would recommend a game like Star Wars or Vampire the Masquerade. I wouldn't say Werewolf, because Werewolf is a lot of hack and slash. It really is. But Mage, the Ascension, is a wonderful game
I
for
love Mage.
getting people to a table. If you are a half-assed DM and you can string along a plot for 18 to 30 hours, you need to run Mage the Ascension. Good luck, Kevin. Good seeing you again. And you want to have a game that you're saying something like, I'm thinking about running this, and you drop the name, and you just give like an elevator pitch, 3 sentences, and automatically you put that in just a few Facebook groups or a few Yahoo groups or a few Google chats, and next thing you have people talking to you on Discord. You'll have that. And once you have, if you've made yourself a name, you will have people wanting to play your game. Like right now on my Saturday game, I've got 7 players that are wanting to be in the same damn room. I don't know if I want to do that. Especially if 2 of them start talking about guns when the rest of them want to talk about their adventure. But I'm just want to say, if you're a good DM, and there's ways to become good, but main thing is practice by reading, practice by doing thought exercises. How can I challenge players with this? What would be a good way for the players to have their resources depleted? What would be a good way to get the players some needed experience to where they could have their training montage? I need to have something that will challenge my players, that will reward my players, and I need to be able to have a narrative to where all of these people will have fun and can't wait to get back. And you can do this with any system. You can do it with Fate. You can do it with Star Wars. You can do it with fucking D&D. You can do it with any edition of whatever game you got at hand, even Fatal. All you have to do is be a good DM.
Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Oh, yeah, you can do it with that miserable pile of shit. But yeah.
Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Okay.
On that note, I'm going to head out. Everybody check out Legion of Myth on YouTube, and you can check out our hate video, apparently, from Spelljammer video. Has caused a lot of animosity out there. Good. I hope it causes more. And no, I don't apologize for anything or any comments that I or Heathen Dog make, because I don't care. Your feelings don't matter to me at all. That's the type of person you're dealing with here. And Jade, it's the first time I've been on with you. Thank you. It's good talk with you. I actually liked, what you had to say earlier. Cigar DM, thanks for having me on. And Bruce, as always, I will talk to you in the future, and you guys have a great night.
Hi, buddy.
All right. Well, to continue on, what was that?
Cal says at 9:33, better to join an in-store game, you meet new people and assess them. So that's about 2 months of getting to know people in a group and getting to know them well enough to where you can try to assess as to what type of player they're going to be for your table.
Oh yeah, I mean it is a time commitment. You know, if you're trying to get people interested into a game, you're gonna have to put in the time for it. If people are already interested in gaming with you, it's easier and a little bit faster. For example, I could probably convince the entire Table Breakers crew to play through Index Card RPG if I had a good module set or story set to run in it, like on hand. But that's because I kind of know some of them, and I've been with you guys for 2 months now on Table Breakers. So it is a time commitment. If you're trying to get people interested into the hobby, but you have to keep it interesting. You have to keep it, geared in such a way as to make it inviting. So, crushing their characters under heel every single time you meet, not really gonna get people in the door. Boosting them up and giving them those moments of glory, that will probably keep them coming back. Not that every moment is a moment of glory, but the ones that are real special moments of glory, highlight those. Focus on those really amazing moments of triumph. Because everybody likes to be a winner. Everybody likes to have the glory and have their moment in the spotlight. Well, shine that spotlight on those moments, and your players will want to come back.
I immensely agree. Not one of us that's been in this hobby long enough doesn't have like 5 or 6 stories. There may be things that their friends did at the table that will keep bringing them back and drag new people at the table because it's about storytelling. And when you're around a group of people, what do? You tell stories of things you've been. Oh, by the way, last Sunday's game we did this or we did that, and you might be talking to a group of people, and one of them might not know what the hell you're talking about and be interested. Now I know 5e gets a lot. 5e is the redheaded stepchild right now. It's getting a lot of hate, which it is what it is. But for newer players, it's not a bad pair of training wheels. Now, with that being said, I'm going to bring in Shadow and Sons, since he was ever so nice to be willing to join us tonight, and see what's his opinion on these topics.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Shadow.
How's it going, guys?
How you been, man?
No.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm outside near the racetrack. It's my backyard.
Don't tell Jade. He'll be asking about the cars. Tonight's topic is about bringing new people into the hobby. What would you do to introduce? Like you have your son plays. How did you bring him into it? Was it just he fell into it, or was it dragging?
It started early on with him watching me paint, and he really liked clay and of course Legos. But he started he sculpted a Space Marine that was for a 3-year-old it was pretty damn good. And he saw me painting, and I play this game Shadows of Brimstone. You guys probably know my addiction to it. And it has a solo mode, and this was way before COVID. And I was playing, and he's like, "I want to play." So we started playing Shadows of Brimstone, and then I'm watching him and his friends play in the backyard. Make believe their little stories. Their version of cops and robbers, but it was basically D&D live action, and I'm like, this kid's ready. He's ready to dungeon master. He's telling the older kids what to do, and just taking the reins. So we took out the old AD&D player's handbook, made up a character, and actually 2 for him because it was just me and him, and just one character that's kind of weak. So we ended up staying up till midnight, and he was hooked ever since. And we haven't played D&D as much as we'd like, because Shadows of Brimstone's easier. We can tear it down, and there's a beginning and an end to the game. It's a board game, and that was basically it for him. But with other people, I go with what they like. What kind of movies do they like? Because it doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragons. There's things like Top Secret. There's Boot Hill, Gamma World, Star Wars role-playing games. There's all kinds of different, RPGs. And, I would just, maybe start with one of those, see if they're interested, explain, the weirdness about it, because it's kind of different than other games. The whole concept of role playing could easily not be for certain people. It's kind of intimidating, let's say, or maybe they might see it as embarrassing, playing these games, pretending they're somebody else when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or what have you. But if they're, especially with sci-fi and fantasy, if they're already a fan, like the Lord of the Rings movies or Star Wars, it just seems, the next step. I always remember how I heard about that. I don't know if this is just an urban legend or what, but supposedly when Gygax and Ernestine finished reading the Lord of the Rings, they didn't want it to end, and that's how D&D was born. I don't know. Maybe it's just a fanciful wish on our part, but I could see that being the case.
That's fair enough. Now, so bringing in people into the hobby, you brought up movies. I like movies. I do movies. I like books. Don't get me wrong. I like books, but I like movies. I think for RPG, I think movies and books are about the same tier, at least for me. Now, is there any particular movie set for that one that came out in the was it mid 90s, late 90s? Was there any movie out there other than, like, let's say The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings you'd have a young player watch to try to get an idea what this is or what kind
Oh,
of world?
absolutely. A while back I did the Chronicles of Narnia, which is, you know, some people really don't like it for certain reasons, but there isn't a better movie for kids, in my opinion, to get them into this hobby. It takes them, they go through the magic doorway and boom, they're D&D characters. And it's it's the gore and violence are toned down, but the spirit, other than there being an actual dungeon, because at least in the first book there is no dungeon. And it's especially little girls. I can't think of a better way other than maybe watching She-Ra or something like that. You've got little kids, boom, here's the story. You read it to them, and if they like the first one, then obviously there's 5 or 6 or 7 more. I just got the box set. I think there's 7 books in total, but there's a prequel to The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe that I didn't know about. And I only made it to like book 3 or 4 growing up, and then I was on to Conan and things like that. Little boys, it's a lot easier. There's so many things to choose from. The Conan movies, Lord of the Rings, obviously.
I probably would start with like a 13-year-old and be like, okay, this is a Conan movie from 1982.
Ooh, that Conan movie. See, I would do, with a 13-year-old, I would do the Jason Momoa just so I don't get yelled at by the mom for showing him boobs that early in life.
I might even go with Beastmaster just because it's a little more lighthearted. And I watched that movie. I kid you not, more than 365 times because I watched it every day for over a year on HBO, and it just got better for me, But and it did kind of have a dungeon, but and I always side thing, for me a dungeon is really just the place where they lock up the prisoners. It's not this huge maze, that we all have come accustomed to. So a lot of times the dungeon will literally be in just the place where they lock up the people, whoever they are, the good guys or the bad guys, and that's it. Maybe then there's a secret door that leads down to the weird, sacrificial chambers and stuff like that. But anyway, there really are so many gateway movies, and especially today, getting a kid to sit down and read a book is like pulling teeth, especially with my guy. He's been on his phone since he could push buttons, which is about 90% of his life. But he did have some book reports, so I gave him some great books. He really liked them, and yet I think I can count on one hand the books that I know he's read that weren't school related. So you got to go with movies or TV shows if you can find one that's I guess not made recently, because I don't want that garbage going into my kid. But you guys know my son. He's pretty ahead of the curve. Let's just say he's not only is he a smart kid, but he really sees through the bullshit that they're trying to feed the kids.
Now, so I'm gonna go to stay with the question. I'm gonna
Hold
say
on,
that
hold
you
on.
would probably go with Beastmaster. Beastmaster would be yours. Wow, 1990s Gargoyle is a cartoon. Yeah, that's a good cartoon. Sorry, I got sidetracked by chat. But
Oh, I forgot there.
Hold,
Let's
hold
see.
on, hold on, Connell. It's not a dungeon. It's a fortified underground defense installation.
you know what? We're bringing this topic back to table breakers. What is a
Hey
dungeon?
Cal, hey Omni, how you guys doing? Omen, sorry, I
Anyway,
dyslexic or
as you were.
something. I see his name.
We
Too many
this is
O's.
like our third or fourth conversation on table breakers. What defines a dungeon? And like some people were like, a dungeon is wherever the fuck you want it to be, and other people were like, a dungeon is a place you throw the people that have said no words or whatever's a crime. That's where you put them, and that's funny that
Typically
you
underneath
went
a
on
keep.
that. What?
Typically underneath a keep or castle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
traditional
the definition of a
European dungeon is like, yeah. So, anyways, so what would be your book or movie of choice again? A younger player to watch their Jay to give them the general
Oh,
idea.
me?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that depends.
I really want to take Token off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go Tolkien because I mean everybody says Tolkien, but man, to get young people into gaming, oof, I could think of several books.
Mazes and Monsters with Tom Hanks.
You know,
Sorry.
that's what ruined
Sorry.
most people's childhoods. Thank you, Tom Hanks.
I would say the book of Ready Player One is a good look at like 1980s culture and gaming in general. Not just video gaming, but it also covered D&D. It covered, all of the aspects of early Dungeons and Dragons. I want to say early Dungeons and Dragons, like 1980s Dungeons and Dragons. That would be a good book to read. You know what? For the more modern games, I'm going to say by modern, I mean like 3X, 5E, index card RPG, maybe some of the Fate system games. You could even do this in GURPS. I would recommend reading literally any Brandon Sanderson Cosmere novel. Because I have put thought into it as kind of a thought experiment of how to run any one of his magic systems from the Cosmere in any system. It can be done, and you can actually play those games in those worlds from those books. So I would recommend literally any Brandon Sanderson novel as a kind of a gateway into exploring other worlds, for play. Movie wise, man, I would have to say the Marvel Universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, is a great gateway into like superhero style games.
Yep.
Because we can see and visualize everything on the silver screen, and we don't need over dramatized text or verbal cues as to what
That's a
a
good
city street looks like. So
Have
the
any of you
original
guys
Star
ever
Wars
played
movies,
any superhero games?
No, I mean, no,
I tried.
haven't played any of the. I don't remember what system it is, but no, I've not played any superhero games. I have been accused multiple times in the past making comic book characters into characters for D&D, but my argument is, where's the fucking difference? Like us as Hawkeye or Green Arrow. I can make an argument for every character, comic book character, for every fantasy D&D or Pathfinder or whatever character. There's.
But you
Yeah.
have to make it your own. You
Yeah.
can't just run like straight from the comic book or straight from the movie that character. Make it your own. Do your own thing. Otherwise, you're just playing someone else's fantasy.
Unless you're actually playing the Marvel superhero game or games, because there's a new one out, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's actually a good idea, especially if the kids or the boy or the people you are trying to get into the game are avid Marvel or comic book fans. That's a great way to go. And there are a lot of games besides Marvel that I'd recommend before Marvel. Uh, you know, my favorite, of course, was Villains and Vigilantes because it was a great game that you could literally actually play any game. Like if you wanted to play Conan or Sherlock Holmes, anything you could think of in 47 pages, and it's all you ever needed. And you can still pick it up for like $20. And it was, there's some heavy math in there, but other than that, it was a lot of fun, and you could make some really powerful characters. I mean, Superman at first level, and you weren't really breaking any, taboos or rules per se. And you want a character to fly the speed of light, 2 powers, you've got it. But I didn't think of that, but you know that only works up to a certain age bracket. Then I think you gotta entice them with something else, and I think it all boils down to what that they already like, and use that as bait.
I mean, if you want to go grim dark, you go to something like Cthulhu Mythos, or you go to Dark Heresy, and if you want that really grim dark feel.
Right, but I think with Cthulhu, if you actually bump into someone who likes Cthulhu, they probably already know all about every role playing game out there, or at least of role playing games, because it's such a niche little, tiny little fragment of the role playing game universe. But if they already know about that, then I bet money that they've already heard of role playing games.
So, what about you, Bruce?
I'm gonna deviate here. When I was a young man, I read a lot. I did. I used to have a library card. I used to have a Walden Books discount card. I used to have every way you could save money on the written word. I would do it. And I feel bad for not filling up my bookshelf because there's a pawn shop, a used bookstore, right next to the Dragon's Lair on Fredericksburg. But and there's more Star Wars novels I want to buy because they're from before the dark time, and I just got to say that I would probably go at it if I was going to rope people in. I would say I'm running a game that has a breadth and depth of the Dark Tower series.
Ooh,
Stephen
okay.
King. Stephen King?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Okay.
say Stephen King. I wouldn't say the game system, but I would say I'm running a game that's going to have the width and breadth of the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. And right there, I've got people interested and ready to go. I mean, you have you say we're
I say I
playing.
never read it. It's funny. My mom loved those books, and she like you and I read Up a Storm, a book a day minimum, and she always wanted me to read them, but I couldn't get into Stephen King, and I even had a gunslinger, and I just at the time I was just
Rolling.
And
To say it's Stephen King.
Yeah, I know, because it's not really a super deep series, but it has a lot of variety within that world.
It touches everything. Everything he's ever written.
I mean, to say that it's Stephen King is kind of a misnomer. Yes, Stephen King wrote the Dark Tower series, but it is not like a lot of his other works in the slightest. It is definitely its own thing. Now, yes, it does touch the other books he's written, in as far as like if they are separate worlds, it can touch those other worlds. But the Dark Tower is just far more. I don't even know the right word. The word's escaping me. It is not like his other novels. I'm just going to put it that way. It is an amazing series.
Yeah, the first 3 books I thought were great. The 4th book was a knockout. The Wolves of Calla is kind of like when they hit high level and you want to read a book where you see what epic heroes can do. That's the Wolves of Calla.
Okay.
The last 2 books in the series, I wasn't really terribly impressed with. but they ended the book for the most part. They ended his story wheel for the most part. There's other books that are really close to the Dark Tower, but it's this guy that is a knight going through a world that's being torn apart by reality. And in his quest, he feels that he can get his answers out of a wizard at first. And so he chases a man in black across the continent. And on the way, he finds a young boy named Jake. And Jake helps him in numerous ways, and they become good friends. And then at one point, Jake suffers a horrible event. And Roland is torn between either saving him or pursuing the man in black. And Jake says, go after the man in black. There are other worlds than these. And later on in time, Roland bumps into another version of Jake who remembers dying and then went back to his Earth. It's a neat book series. There's a lot of really cool things that happen in it. But I'd say after the Wolves of Kala, you could shelve it and just say eventually he gets what he wants. You could. Now the last two books are really well done, don't get me wrong, but they're not as good as the first five. It breaks my heart to say that. Fuck.
Unlike the Dresden Files. Dresden Files is good from beginning to end.
The last two books of the Dark Tower series are classic Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's classic Stephen King.
Yeah, he doesn't really do great with endings.
No. The Stand ended on a whimper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Stephen King was my mom's favorite writer, and to be honest, the only thing I liked that he was a part of was Shawshank, and everything besides that was, I could solve it with my 45 kind of an issue, and I've had a handgun of one sort or another. Apparently, Stephen King was terrified of them and didn't realize how handy they actually are. So, I mean, other than maybe Salem's Lot, in which case I'd give him my crossbow and a problem solved once again. But, he clearly didn't, play D&D. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, that and he was high on coke when he wrote most of these books. So, take your argument where it stands. Nothing against Stephen King. I enjoy his books immensely. I enjoy it. I like it. Just the possibilities of it, I think, are really fun for me. And I feel.
Sorry, I just saw Horse Clans, and I'm getting ready to reread those real soon here. And I didn't think anybody knew anything about those books anymore, but I just, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
I have to say though, when it comes to Stephen King, his short stories are probably the best. In my opinion. I mean, I like Dreamcatcher, but that wasn't a short story. But Dreamcatcher, and I can't think of what the other one are, probably my three favorite books. Silver Bullet. I think it might have been Silver Bullet. I don't remember what. But honestly, when I have a daughter, and I have two stepchildren that they're mine. I don't care. I don't really add the step. They're my boys. The oldest turned 21 this year, and the other one's now in high school. Boy, do I feel freaking old. Anyways,
happens to all of us.
The youngest two, him and Corbin and Maggie. Corbin was wanting to play because used to play at my house when I was living in Nashville all the time. I'm like, yes, you can play, but you need to watch two things first. He's like, what? So I put the old 80s Dungeons and Dragons in cartoon.
Okay.
Just to give him the idea. And the second one, I did it more as because I want to, he's going to be playing with other people and things don't always go to plan idea. I put in the Goonies.
Okay.
Because it's Goonies has nothing to do with fantasy. I will be the first one to admit to that. It has nothing to do with fantasy, but it shows team or people dynamics are put together in a really weird situation where it's still kid friendly that I could show a 10-year-old.
Stranger Things might be another one to add.
Yeah. He's not really into horror, so that's why I did Goonies. But yeah, I think honestly, there's 101 different books out there. There is just as many movies out there that could fit the genre game that you want to run, or the genre
Absolutely.
that people want to run. I mean, Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate, Star Child. Wait, no, that's Kiss. Never mind. Well, maybe he wants to be a bard. Or no, that was Ace Frehley. No, that was never mind. That was still
The
Kiss.
Paul's family.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter where the inspiration comes from, for the game, be it a book, movie, a play written by an author hundreds of years ago, you have to find what interests the people that you're wanting to invite to the game. And it, as I said earlier, it takes time to get to know them, to get to know what their likes and dislikes are. So you can kind of curtail your game towards that kind of play.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally, it's just finding out what people like and running and inviting them to a game that might have some of those same elements. So it really breaks down to get out there and get to know people. Don't hole up in with the same group of 4 people every day, all day. Branch out, explore, go to your local hobby shop and, find out what people are into, find out what other, gamers are out there. Be invited to games, even if they're online. Roll20 has a huge community. I mean, if there's something you're interested in, likely someone's running a game of it.
I kind of think we should flip this on an ear momentarily. We got about 19 minutes left of the 2-hour stream that I want to do. I kind of want to ask if there's things out there for newer players they should watch out for. These are the good. Maybe we should spend the last few minutes on the bad, the things that you are going to be toxic to your gaming experience that you want to keep an eye out for.
Okay.
How about it's something that I had a, not personally, but I had an issue with throughout all of my gaming career were drug users. I don't want that around. I don't want that in my house. I don't want it around my kid. I don't want it to turn the game into either something awkward, weird, or potentially illegal, or unhealthy. Just I understand that a lot of people who game, let's just say smoke weed, for example. Okay, and back in college, there were a lot of people who do other things to be able to game longer. I'm not in college anymore and can't get away with that crap, but I'm not gonna risk certain things. If people want to go outside and spark one up, I get that, but bringing it into the house, and you never know who is going to get upset by such activities, especially with wives and girlfriends and things like that, worrying what kind of people are you bringing into the house, and now you're doing this weird activity at the dinner table. That's been my biggest negative experience, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
don't get me wrong, there were some great times. I'm not gonna lie. I went to college. I did everything you can possibly imagine. I've experienced one way or another, and there's a time and place for everything, and that place is college. And I'm not there anymore.
I would probably double up on that, along with like the people that are addicted to a vice. The people I don't want at my game table are people that get weird around I don't want to say the opposite sex, because you're seeing it now with more of the weird people that would never probably be invited to my table to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
but with people that get obsessed with another player at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that happen way too many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Where, listen, hey, Shelly wants to play. She deserves to play. Her brother's here, and you're making it kind of weird for Shelly to be part of our gaming group. I'm going to have to ask you to leave, Tommy, and you need to go. And, I hate having that talk with somebody, but there are some people, they never learn how to talk to somebody that might be a potential relative, like, a wife or a girlfriend. They never learn how to do that. And this hobby used to gather them like fleas on a dog. And I hate to say that, but you can usually see this a mile away. One thing we were just saying it in the chat, run a game at a store, you get to see people as they are, and you can see them both around various personnel that they're not going to have a lot of interaction with, just like regular people coming into the store to buy stuff. And then you can see them at a table when they feel they can be more relaxed and they can get into character, and you can get an idea. So I hate to say run a store game at first, but yeah, seriously, do it for a year. Run a store game and then take it into your home or take it to a private location where you as a DM feel more happy and more comfortable, but you can use more props or stuff. Your own home is always a good place because a lot of us keep our stuff there. And so you can do that, but I can't stand it when I have such a heavy distraction at the table that I can't get a single scene or event done without one of my players staring at the other player. Look at Tammy's boobs. They're huge on like Discord or in a text message. Stop that, Tommy. Stop that. I've had this happen too much.
Yeah, I've seen that happen many times. Yeah.
Ravenslayer, you might be more of a seasoned individual than most of us here in the panel, but there is nothing wrong with having that good experience. Okay, and we welcome you in this cadre.
The Raven Lair. I was reading her text, and she's brought up SCA, and I'm like, I know what SCA is. SCA is fun. I'm just too poor to play it. Okay.
Some things do require a little bit of money. And Shawner has entered the chat. Hello, Shawner.
I would say, as far as like things to stay away from, everyone wants to feel powerful. Everyone wants to be the big damn hero. Everyone wants the story to be focused on them. That's natural. That's human. But I would say if you're going, as advice, stay away from power gaming early on. Can you build a character that literally breaks the game and reality? Yes, you can. There are thousands of videos on 3.5, Pathfinder 2.0, and 5e that tell you how to break the system. There's thousands of videos that do that, and I hate every single one of them because at that point you're playing the numbers game. You're not playing the social game. If you want to play a numbers game, fine. Go for it. Be broken as absolute hell, and make the GM cry at night because they can't get over the fact that you can run numbers better than they can. Go for it if that's how you want to feel powerful. But I would say don't do that, because in the end, you're going to push everyone away because no one's going to want to play with your min-maxing McMurder hobo bullshit. I learned the hard way. I did that for years. I power gamed like a son of a bitch. I power gamed like it was going out of fashion. And I hate myself for it now. I look back and I'm like, wow, I pushed a lot of my friends away because I was trying to win the game. Stop trying to win the game. Have fun. That's the point. That's the whole point of it, is having fun with your friends, not pushing them away, not, going, oh yeah, let's play who's the better killer. No, stop that.
Yeah.
Because nothing will drive a wedge between friends faster than unhealthy competition of who can run the numbers better.
That and cheating girlfriends.
That too.
Sorry.
But I mean,
not touching that. Not touching that.
That's an entirely different topic. No, build flaws into your character. Not every single person out there is perfect. I'm not saying build a flaw of, oh yeah, I've got a gimp leg. No, I'm saying build flaws, like have real fears that the character might have. Like, are
But it has to
they
be snakes.
oh yeah, why has it got to be snakes? Or arachnophobia is a thing. Build in these small, not necessarily game breaking and character limiting flaws, but something to make them more real. Play the character with personality. Don't just strictly run the numbers of, okay, the GM goes, all right, you're being assailed by orcs tonight. Everyone roll initiative. I walk up and I stab it. I rolled an 18, 20 damage, and next person. That's boring as hell. I hate that kind of play, and I used to do it. I speak from experience. I even hate myself for doing that. I really wish that someone had given me this advice back then to say, stop playing the numbers, start playing the character. That's my advice.
I think my advice to most people is kind of goes along with what everything has been said so far. Leave your ego at the door. You're there to have fun. If somebody at your table has an ego score of more than a 14, 15, maybe talk to the other people that you game with, maybe talk to the DM so the DM can have a conversation with this guy, say, hey, you're kind of shitting the bed for everybody else.
Is that a slight Amber Heard comment?
No, but it is not.
It's topical.
I'm not keeping up with times, apparently. I have no idea what that means.
It's all right. I use that term before later. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not missing
I
anything
use that term
important.
before the court, the court story. So that's my only defense. But I'm not the easiest person to deal with. So any guy who's new at the table who has to deal with somebody like me, I'm like, just talk to me and say, hey, could you settle down? You're kind of loud, don't make me get up and try to punch you. That's happened once. Or think about punching you. And if somebody leads you into a basement with dark lights and purple curtains and candles, that's the beginning of most horror movies and a few other movies that we're not going to talk about of the adult theme.
I wish I was making it up, but it actually happened.
I believe you, Bruce. I just, but
that was the 90s. That was like the start of the storyteller juggernaut that destroyed second edition at the cash register.
So I guess just watch out for your experience. Most game shops should be a safe place for kids because that's really what they're meant for. And I've said this before.
Absolutely.
And I think if you're a new DM or you're a new player, going to your local game shop, see if you can rent a table. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit of money. There's places out there. Sometimes the starters are like, wait, you're bringing business into my shop? No, go for it. Just depends on who you're dealing with. And get to know the people before you bring them home to your place or you go to their place because you never know you're going to get into once you leave a public area.
You want to have
and keep it safe for work and keep the volume down.
Right, no one needs a Buffalo Bill. Roll the dice again, you get the hose again. No one needs that. So what I'm going to say is don't keep your head on swivel, but be cautious to a point. Understand your surroundings. Understand the people that you're playing with. If you're having a good time with them, they're having a good time with you. Maybe you can get a 5-hour game out of it. Maybe you can get a 5-year game out of it. The idea is to have fun and make friends. This is a social gathering. Peter Pan and Viet's best. And that is my point of view of how bringing somebody new into our hobby. how to encounter somebody who doesn't know what's going on. There's a lot of games out there, Magic Gathering to RPGs and everything else in between. Don't be a dick. So it is roughly 6 minutes before we say goodnight. And does anybody have any last words of wisdom? I'll start with old Punchy Ironside.
I actually was wanting to hear what Shadow and Son had to say because he's been here, for the shortest amount of time. And I would defer to him because I want to give him the chance to speak. I want to hear what this man has to say.
My biggest advice would be, thanks, Bruce, would be know your place and your position on the team. Okay? The Three Musketeers, the Fantastic Four, things like that, that's what made them work. There was a strong guy, there was the stretchy guy, the stealth girl, and the DPS character, if you will. Know your place. Try to when you're as a dungeon master, try not to make it so that there's one profession is always going to be the star of your game. I've seen too many dungeon masters where they prefer the thief, or they prefer the wizard, and therefore the wizard gets all the good stuff because that's what they like, and that's what they wish they were playing, I guess. So encourage your players to find that spot on the team that is theirs. That way nobody's stepping on each other's toes. You don't have the big strong guy always wanting to bust down the door when there's a thief in the party, so to speak. That's his job. Everybody do your job. Everybody know your place and your position. You can't have two quarterbacks. Maybe there's someone who's really good at being what we used to call the caller, the person who would, more or less be in charge of the team. Maybe let each player take turns doing that at first till someone really, fills that spot better than the others. But, really simply just, and even the dungeon master, he has to know his part. Don't give too much away. Make him work for every penny, and make every moment memorable as you can. And if you can follow those simple guidelines right off the bat, everybody's going to want to come back, and everybody's going to miss each other if they can't make it. If someone can't make it, the whole party should be kind of bummed that hey, what are we going to do without the priest or the thief or the fighter? Maybe we should just stay in town tonight because so and so can't make it to the game. Make each other, not just depend on each other, but enjoy each other's company.
It's really sound advice. So who wants to follow that?
I'll pair up with it.
Okay.
You have
Thanks, guys.
you have thanks a lot for that
Yeah.
food for thought there, Shadow.
Hey, no
I
problem.
want to say that whenever we have a gathering of people that starts to get to be long, and I mean that by if you play more than 100 hours together, not in a row. If you're playing 100 hours together, you have a cult, and I want to be part of the compound. But I really I envy that because those players start to get to know each other and are getting to feel each other out as to where their boundaries are at with each other, where I need to take over for Tom, where Tom needs to step in for Ben, where Ben needs to be able to provide control over various aspects of his character's strengths. And you have the synergy that starts to build. And the one thing I'm going to say that if you have a game that is like a traditional level-based system, the longer you play together, the more that you and your friends will actually start to learn the system or learn how the DM prefers you to play the system, and you will start to have a harmony between the players where everybody will see where their roles are at. And some nights you might not want to play. It might be your regular gaming night, but you've been together for the past 2 years on every other Saturday or every Saturday or every Thursday night. And instead, you might just have an idea like, hey, why don't we go out to eat? Why don't we have supper together? We usually eat at the table when we play, but why don't we go out and do something different? Like, there's a good movie, The Norseman. Let's go see it. And so you might have an opportunity to break away from the usual thing that you've been doing with the same people over and over and over again. Give it a chance, because if you're like me, you haven't gone out in public for a long time, and this might be an opportunity for you to stretch your own self and to at least connect with the world, with your friends that you would probably have the most inane conversations with. You're going to go out and just hang out with them. You haven't done this. A lot of us, we get to a table, and the table becomes our hobby. It becomes our church almost. And people get into this to where that is the most important part of their week. And you probably haven't ever experienced going out with these people before. Go out, enjoy somebody's birthday at Texas Roadhouse, or go see a movie together and laugh. It's okay to do that, because you probably won't get but a handful of opportunities to do that with them. I'm just saying that because a lot of us, whenever that experience or experiment is over, the next time this comes around, it might be 4 years between now and again, where we're like, we're not going to game today. We're going to go out and see this movie. The sequel to Stone Cold is in the theaters. We got to see it. And so you're going to go see this movie, or you're going to go enjoy somebody's birthday party at a store, or maybe you just don't want to play that night. You want to hang out, but you don't want to play, and it's okay to have that. You people are friends. It's okay to do that. That's kind of something that friends used to do before the miserable pandemic that hit us. So it's okay to get into habits, good habits, healthy habits.
That was beautiful.
I don't want to go that far.
No, you'd be amazed. Oh shit!
Well, there's that.
Well,
It
okay.
wasn't the bed that was shitting; it was the internet. All right,
Apparently the pig
you're up.
fucked back.
What was that, Bruce?
Apparently the pig fucked him back.
Right. Anyways, you're up, Jade.
Oh man. I was just so engrossed with what they were talking about. What was the question again?
Words of wisdom.
Well,
Wrap up.
I already kind of gave my words of wisdom. Play the character, not the numbers. Get to know your friends and have a great time. That's what it all boils down to at the end of the day. Whenever you're gaming, is you're there to have a good time. So have a good time. I don't need numbers on a page to dictate to me how, if I'm gonna have a good time. I have a good time just chatting with my friends on a topic or scenario. So
Okay. That's my words of wisdom is what the hell? Roll your dice in the dark and fill out your character sheet in the with crayon. Everybody have a good night tonight, and I'm glad to the chat for showing up and sticking with us for 2 hours, and for all the comments. As Bruce has said before, if it wasn't for chat, there would be no need for us. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a good night. We will see you tomorrow at Table Breakers, where we'll be talking about gaming and all your gaming questions. Until then, don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Don't get caught doing something I would do.
just don't get caught.
Remember, Disney was right. You're only in trouble if you get caught.
It's only a war crime if it's not the first time.
Oh,
He just boomered.
I think he did.
he just boomered. Get back in here, Connell.
Yeah.
Connell.
He might have accidentally closed his window.